So here we have the Battle of Antioch. This is the second battle in the Infidel series. This is a really interesting situation. The Crusaders laid siege to Antioch, and it really was one of the key points to the whole First Crusade was the taking of Antioch. This is when the Crusaders started to realize, wow, we're actually winning, and began feathering their own nests rather than just only heading towards Jerusalem. Okay. But beyond that, a little bit into the actual siege. This battle doesn't cover the siege. It covers a relief attempt. After the city fell, and the Crusaders were under quite a bit of pressure to take the city quickly, because Kelbuga, I believe, a Mosul Turk who managed to gather a large alliance to face the Crusader army and try to stop it in its tracks, was coming with that huge army. And so they made a huge effort to take Antioch. They succeeded in taking it, except for the citadel. So they started to lay siege to the citadel inside the city. And you'll see on the board, the old Crusader camp is over here. That has no effect on play. It's just a historical thing. The Bridge of Boats does have an effect. That's a bridge the Crusaders used when they didn't control the actual gate to the city, so that they could set their siege equipment up. And there used to be, there was a lot of forest and woods in the area, but it was all denuded. You know, I mean, we go from here to here. It was all gone because of building the siege equipment to take Antioch. Okay. So, at this point, the Crusaders are learning about Kerboga's advance. I'm trying to remember who it was. Stephen of Blois abandoned Antioch, thinking all was lost. He runs into Alexius, the emperor from Byzantium, and says, "Oh no, don't bother. They're just doomed. We got no chance." And turns around and they all leave. Meanwhile, the Holy Lance that purportedly was the lance on Christ's crucifixion was discovered, and the Crusaders go out to meet Kerboga. And here's where we're seeing this, is the beginning of a sally against this light holding force of Turkoman. Now, this game gives, the designer gives very little credit to Kerboga. My problem with that is he was very, very respected as a military leader before this battle. And it tries to shift the entire blame, or a lot of the blame, onto him for delaying and allowing all the Crusaders out. And it may be the case. It may be the case that was there. But there was also a lot of dissension in his own ranks. And rather than a lengthy siege, if he could wipe out a small force, which he believed he had here, and in truth, some accounts, well, some interpretations put it as, you know, a huge Crusader force. But the truth of the matter was, this was much reduced from before. And you'll see, it's also missing one of the great advantages that the Crusaders had over at Dorylaeum, which is they don't have many horses. Here we've got the lead force under Hugo Verdomo, and he's got a grand total of 1 mounted cav, and he's got a couple of dismounted knights who no longer have their horses. It was very hard for these huge death trainers to be maintained in this campaign. So anyway, we've got a largely infantry force facing what turns out is a fairly mixed force. Cavaliga has he has a decent amount of cav, but it's also a largely infantry force. He's got an interesting mix of cav. He's got, and we'll see these as they come out, but I don't know if he has any heavies. But he's got both some light archers and some medium cav, but he doesn't have, what we saw in the last one was sort of this mixed use cav, medium weight for shock and archer ability. So here we have some light archers, and what's kind of interesting about these guys is they don't have a leader. They can only be activated by a free activation, and it may be best just to get them out of the way because they're worth two flight points each. Where are the flight points? Well, Turks are at 35 they have to get, and the Crusaders only have to get to 20. And I think the men-at-arms count as 2 as well. Knights, of course, 3. Almost the infantry 1. Anything else that's exciting here? Standards. The Turks don't have a battle standard. If a unit of theirs retires, it is eliminated. The Crusaders are considered to have standards in every hex of Antioch. What that means is that they can rally from anywhere, but they have to trigger a specific hex, I think, in order to rally it. And there aren't a lot of hexes here, and it's not really clear how you move between them, so I'm not entirely sure. We'll see how that works out. I think it's just going to be kind of cluttered over there. But if they run out of spaces, then obviously they're out. Anything else? Overall commander. Crusaders don't have one. The Turks have Kerboiga, but he's not allowed to enter the map. All he can be used for is to cause reinforcements to enter. And even on a free activation, he has to roll to see if he can cause a reinforcement to come in. So it could be a very piecemeal battle where... See, this is where the problem is if his entire force had swept out and met the entire Crusader force in an organized manner, I don't know if the situation would have been what it was. It turned out to be a complete rout, and the Citadel surrendered after, just because it was so obvious. And then the Crusaders decided, hey, how are we going to carve up this land? Okay, on to the battle. So Hugh's force marched forward. This is heavy cav up here, the knight moving for a charge against the Turkmens. Won the initial fire against the light cav. Now let's just move up for the charge. Everything's declaring a shock. Now all 4 of these, everyone except the disrupted unit, is able to actually withdraw. I'll take care of that. This guy has a problem. He has to roll a die. This is something John was asking about. How do they handle the light cav withdrawing from anything? Well, he has to make a roll, and if he rolls a 6 or more, I'll just do that. He does not. He would have been disordered. Instead, he's just able to pull back, and the charge fails. They got away. No matter what, they get away. It's just whether or not they get disrupted by moving. These guys also all get to pull away. Now, there's a problem if they don't have room to get away. If they don't have maneuvering room, they're in trouble. This guy, however, has to stand and fight. And, hey, heck, I haven't shown the combat for this game. I'm going to attack just with the pike infantry, because I don't want to mix the archers into this. I'm not absolutely certain, but I think... Oh, I think you do use best type, right? Sure. If you use best type, they're an advantage. Let's see. 5. Yeah, I can use the best type. So I'll use both, because that gives me a +1 for strength. I have 2 units to his 1, so I get +1. Yeah, it's simple, but it actually covers things very nicely. And the fact that units don't take step losses or anything, it all works very nicely. Okay, so let's figure out what my total modifications are. First of all, I have the strength advantage. I have a +1 for that. Then there's no positional advantage. I'm both hitting from the front. If I had had a flank shot in there, I could get a lot of bonuses. The defender's die modifier. So here's his defense modifier, +3. So it goes from +1 to +4 now. Leader presence, there's no leader. An attacking leader could add 1. Unit type matrix. Okay, so I've got pike attacking light cav archers. Pike and light cav archers aren't specified, so I get another +1. So I'm up to +5. This is really powerful. Attacker status, defender status, continued attack, none of them apply. Okay, so I have a +5. I'm going to be using the normal shock combat. It's not a charge because I'm not using heavy cav. Only knights and heavies can do this. My opponent, I look at his standing, he's disordered. What did I say, +5? And I roll a 6. Defender retires. Well, in this game, that's eliminated, and I believe that's going to be two flight points. Just wanted to give you guys a look at that, because that's how oh, and somebody has to advance. Let's advance the pike. Okay. That's how the combat actually works. It's very simple, but it takes into account much of the stuff that you're going to see in the Great Battles of History games that I love, but this is a really smooth, nice, flowing version. I'm wondering, and I'm not going to buy, if the simplified Great version, Battles of History, used the same mechanism as Men of Iron has used. Because I think it does cut out a lot of the fiddling and a lot of the counters. You know, I don't have to worry about these big stacks of counters with a number on them and different statuses and everything. Sure, I got these statuses, but they're almost transient, and I don't really need them usually. Like with a single big activation, I need them. But it works out very nicely in my view, and you know, I would rather remove a lot of complexity if it's not adding much to the game, and I think this comes close to the experience that you see in the Great Battles of History. I just need all the battles, so you know. I'm not sure how much it applies when you start dealing with some of the special. I mean, there's got to be a lot of special rules to handle different tactical matrices, etc. So I'm not saying you could just lift this straight off, but I am thinking that you could probably get away with a much lighter game like this. All right, I'm gonna send this one up.